for sharing that. Thank you very much. We have a breaking news coming in from Iran. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht-Ravanchi has recently, in an interview, said that Iran is ready to compromise on its nuclear program if the US agrees to lift sanctions. He has emphasized that the US must prove its sincerity in the ongoing talks, with the next round set for Geneva. According to reports, Iran has offered to dilute its enriched uranium but will not discuss its missile program. Takht-Ravanchi has also stated that zero enrichment demands are no longer on the table. Now we move on to Australia. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced a $2.76 Australian billion investment to build a shipyard in Osborne, city of South Australia. This plan is a part of the AUKUS Defence Pact with the US and UK. Prime Minister Albanese has announced that the shipyard will help in building nuclear-powered submarines, creating almost 10,000 employment opportunities. According to reports, the total cost of the project is expected to around 30 billion Australian dollars over the coming decades. Albanese has highlighted that the project will enhance national security and drive economic growth. Reports suggest that the agreement will also see Virginia-class submarines based in Australia starting in 2027, with a new class of nuclear-powered submarines being developed.
We'll see almost 10,000 jobs created to design and build the yard and to build nuclear-powered submarines in South Australia. Today we're announcing that my government will contribute as a down payment $3.9 billion for this project, making an enormous difference. We know that the estimation is that there'll be $30 billion invested here in Adelaide, in South Australia. Well, we're very confident, and I've sat down with President Trump in person, as you will have seen, and had a number of discussions with the President, but other members of the administration as well. This is in the interests of the United States, in the interests of the UK, and in the interests of Australia. And that is why this is a project that is progressing in accordance with not just the principles, but the plan of action which we are rolling out.
Now we welcome retired Major General Gigi Dividi. He's a war veteran and Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General.
Thank you, Suma. Always a pleasure.
Same here. Now, looking at this, from a strategic point of view, can you tell us how transformative is this nuclear-powered submarines be for Australia's deterrence capability, and also with US-commanded submarines set to be based in Australia from 2027, what challenges might arise, or how might this change the region?
Well, Suma, first and foremost, we need to understand as to what's the rationale behind all this. Basically, this is to checkmate the Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific region. And for the information of the viewers today, China numerically has the largest navy in the world. It has more than 350 naval ships, and they plan to raise these figures to 450. So numerically, the Chinese Navy today is the biggest navy in the world. And also backed up with the Coast Guard, it has a very formidable Coast Guard to complement the naval power. So now this transformative strategic initiative is primarily aimed to checkmate the Chinese influence in Indo-Pacific. As you know, the latest national security strategy of US, which have been signed by President Trump, it makes very categorical that the Chinese influence will be checked in the area of interest of the US, and that is especially in the Western Pacific. Now, this AUKUS deal was signed between Australia, United Kingdom and US in 2021. This deal is that there will be nuclear powered submarine but conventionally armed. This needs to be understood that nuclear powered submarine can be armed with nuclear weapons or with conventional weapons. So this deal basically is to give capability to Australia to have nuclear powered submarine but conventionally armed. And there are only 6 countries in the world which have these submarines which are powered by the nuclear reactors. Now this nuclear powered submarine gives them tremendous capability to operate underwater for a very long duration, and that means that they have a tremendous strategic outreach and operational outreach. Now this agreement that have been signed basically is to empower the Australia to have the formidable naval capability. And along with that, you rightly mentioned that America will be selling 3 Virginia-class submarines to Australia, and they'll be based in Australia. And as it is, American soldiers, almost 2,500 American soldiers also are based in Australia. So all this goes on to show that the America, UK, Australia, they come together to ensure that they have a joint capability in Indo-Pacific and to checkmate the Chinese influence in this region.
Right.
Asuma.
Thank you for highlighting that. And also, Major General, now with Prime Minister Anthony Albanese describing this, multi-billion-dollar investment as a down payment, given that AUKUS is in itself $368 billion multi-decade commitment, how sustainable is this in terms of political support within Australia? Especially, critics have already emerged saying that there's budget deficits, there's lack of transparency, and now that the West's alignment, or the traditional allies of US, their trust, as yesterday we were talking, their trust to, although interdependent, their trust towards US is deteriorating or shaky. Can Australia maintain this trust and this huge investment in this?
Well, Asuma, you have to always balance out your defense with the economic growth and the economic interest. So this has to be a fine balance. Well, there is always the argument on when the accretion of budget is there, means definitely it has a impingement on the economic side, because after all, the finances are limited. But then Australia has to balance itself as far as defense capability is concerned, especially as I mentioned that there is a growing threat from China. And imagine today we are looking at only China, but then China has very strong ties with Russia, and Russia also has a formidable Western fleet. So when these two get combined together, that will be a very major threat to Australia and the other countries like South Korea, Japan, which are all willy-nilly are the allies in the Quad. So the point is that yes, there is a shift in the US policy as far as the providing security resources to Europe and even to Australia, because now the policy of President Trump is that the European nations and Australia and other, even in South Korea, Japan, they must increase the defense budget and also share the greater load of the security challenges. So I think Australia has no choice but to be more self-reliant in its capability, while help is there from America, from UK, but the funding has to be largely by the Australians themselves, while the technology will come from UK and USA, but the funding has to come from the Australians themselves, and that's why this major financial commitment has been made by Prime Minister Albanese, because until you fund the project, it won't move forward. And they have certain timelines that by next 3 to 4 years, these submarines must be operational, and they should add to the capability of the Australian Navy. So I think this has to be balanced out. There's always opposition to the raising of the defense spending, but I think national security overrides these considerations, and therefore I think Prime Minister Albanese is right that these funds have to be made available in case they want to have self-reliance and their own security, especially in the Indo-Pacific, with the kind of challenges that are emerging, especially from China. Asuma.
Right. And last but not least, how do you think, how will Australian government or Prime Minister Albanese be able to successfully balance this protecting their sovereignty, but also investing into this AUKUS pact in case of future deterrence from now from China, but like you rightfully mentioned, in case there's more Russia's involvement in the future in the area?
Well, Asuma, every nation has to calculate or evaluate its threat perceptions, and accordingly, you have to earmark funds for your security. But today we are living in the world which is very, very uncertain, and where the security challenges are paramount. And case in point is what is going on in Ukraine. After all, both China and Russia are very aggressive as far as their global designs are concerned. So I think these new developments have to be factored and taken into consideration when Australia evaluates its own threat perception. And I think there has to be consensus among the ruling and the political parties that at the end of the day, if country is not secure, it cannot be prosperous. So that is the defining line, Asuma.
Yes. With that, I'd like to thank Major General G.T. Dwivedi for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to U.S. Secretary